Keep your radio dial right here. You're locked into the hottest news station on the planet. Hot 702.5 in FM sound. Blazing today's hip-hop, R&B, and pop music. Keeping your radio on fire. Bringing you the hottest, realest, riskiest talk shows live 24/7 on hot7025fm.com.
What's up? Hot 702.5 FM. It's your favorite host, Miss Joe King. Welcome to Laugh Therapy, where we, Welcome to Laugh Therapy, where we elevate your mental and your mood one laugh at a time. Again, my name is Joe King. I hope everyone's having a great week. And this is my beautiful and lovely co-host. Introduce yourself, baby love.
Jay, a.k.a. Sunshine. How y'all doing today?
Yeah, we hope y'all are having a great week. And again, if you have not checked out last week's episode on cancel culture, I personally think it was an amazing one. So definitely check that out. You can follow us on YouTube. Check me out on Joe P Comedy on YouTube or King Me Comedy on all social media platforms. Today we have a dope discussion for you and one that is definitely necessary. Hopefully you guys are ready to have it with us today. Today we will be talking LGBTQ community and the Christian community. I originally worded it versus, but I don't necessarily think that it's a fight between the two communities.
We don't want to fight.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of misconceptions, a lot of misunderstandings, and beliefs that don't necessarily have the foundation that we had hoped that they had in the beginning. And to go over this topic, I have an amazing guest that we are bringing on today. Love him to pieces. One of the most talented individuals I've ever had the pleasure of speaking to. I actually met him on TikTok, which is it's I guess it's a habit now. I actually
Everybody in the room. Everybody in
Jess
the room
on TikTok as well, and his name is DANYOL J. I'm super excited to have him, and I was super excited and humbled that he agreed to join us for this topic of discussion today. So without further ado, I'd like to bring him on. Hello, DANYOL.
Hey.
Oh my God, that was such an amazing introduction. Like, I don't know how to feel about that. And then, of course, I realized who the co-host was. And I was like, I'm living for all of this. Yes.
So if you guys have followed, like I said, I meet a lot of people on TikTok. I have a pretty great following. If you guys are not aware, or if you haven't followed my journey, then you wouldn't know that JD and I met via TikTok. So as someone who has followed me, DANYOL J is very much so aware of who she was. So when he came on, he had the biggest grin on his face. I was wondering what it was for. But yes, DANYOL, tell the people where to find you.
You can find me on TikTok and Instagram at DANYOL J Official. That's DANYOLJAYE Official. I am on Twitter at DANYOL J, and you can also find me on Facebook for, the grandmothers and aunties and uncles that want to follow me on Facebook. You can find me there at DANYOL J as well.
It was just seasoned with a little shade, y'all. It was just seasoned. Just a sprinkle of the salt, just a little bit.
That's all right.
But today I'm super excited to have you on to discuss this particular topic with LGBTQ and the misconceptions within the Christian community. Can you give me just a little brief background of your religious background, DANYOL?
So I grew up in a Christian faith. I grew up in both a Baptist denomination, and then I was in the Kojic denomination, and then lastly, before I actually left the church overall, I was in the non-denominational denomination.
Understood. Okay. So definitely
I was a licensed minister at the last church that I was a part of, and I was there for about, I want to say, 10, 11 years.
Oh, wow. So, yeah, we're going to get into it today. We're going to get into the meat.
Yes.
We are going to get into the meat. I am also, and I'm an ordained minister, but it was not for the right reasons. I didn't go through the theology process at all. It was a fight to the man because they tried to stop us from protesting in 2020 when they shut down for COVID. So the only people who could congregate at that time were churches, and it had to be less than 50 people. They had all these different rules in Texas, and I'm a rule breaker. So I got ordained as a minister so that we could still protest under the fact that I'm like, this is my religious following. We're congregating. So I got ordained for I won't say the wrong reasons, but I got ordained in different reasons, more as you can't stop us from utilizing this right rather than a religious standpoint. But let's get into these questions I have for you, Dan. Well, I have for us. For starters, how would you define the relationship between the LGBTQ community and the Christian population, seeing that you operated within both for quite some time?
Two words come to mind immediately: broken and manipulation. I think that the relationship between the church, specifically the Black Christian church, and the LGBTQIA plus community, and for your listeners, my advocacy, my activism, all of what I do begins and ends with Black and brown LGBTQIA plus people first. After that is Black women, and then after that, like, everybody just got to kind of fall in line. But it always starts and ends with Black and brown LGBTQIA plus folks. And I think that when we look at the Christian church overall, it's very, yes, there are things that are similar across the intersectionalities, but it's very specific when we talk about Black church and the Black intersectionality of being queer, and trying to be a Christian, or trying to have a spiritual faith and a relationship with, what we would call God. And I think that relationship between LGBTQIA plus folks and God is broken because of the Black church, because of the church overall. But I also feel like a lot of the knowledge that was used in the Bible is used against us is a manipulation because it's incorrect. A lot of the verses
you just said incorrect. Something, Daniel, and I want to pause you right there because I saw a statement earlier, and I want to know if you agree or disagree with it. The church is supposed to be a sanctuary where everyone goes to worship and to praise their God or our God, right? I saw a statement earlier that said the church is no longer a sanctuary but has become a hindrance to those of us who want to communicate with God, because once you enter the church, in order to get God, you first have to move through judgment of the congregation. Would you agree with that statement, being a member of LGBTQI, I got so many letters. LGBTQI plus community, or would you go a different route with that?
The idea of what we think church is today has always been a problem. It was never a sanctuary for anybody. When we go back to when we look in scripture, and Yah tells us that we are the church, that the congregation of his people. Yes, that is a law of a sense. That's a requirement, us to gather together. But they never gathered in a building every week. Their job was to go out and be out into the communities, spreading the gospel, spreading the good news. And so I think that since organized religion has existed, the building of church, the business of church, has always been a place where people come to be broken, where people come to break down. And instead of building people up with the proper toolage, they are kept broken just enough to stay in the building.
Well,
all right.
That's a way to start.
Because it's a business. It's just like
it's very much so.
It's like the medical field. We have to keep you sick enough so that you keep buying our pharmaceutical prescription drugs. Otherwise, we go out of business. So we can't really give you a cure, but we'll give you a way to manage it because that keeps you on my medication. Church is no different. We're doing it spiritually.
I agree. What would you say, JD? How would you define the relationship between the communities?
Well, I wasn't going in a broader direction. Mine was more focused on myself. It just creates a lot of self-hate because of how they make you feel about homosexuality. And that translate to, well, if I don't conform to their beliefs, something is wrong with me. So I am broken, right? But then on the other hand, when you walk into church and you walk in there dressed like me, you get eyes, you get judgment. And that's not how you want to be in the house of the Lord, right? You don't want to feel some type of way. Now, I could just be all making this up in my head, but That's just my personal experience. It For a long time, it was just a bunch of self-hate.
Wow. My experience, of course, will differ from the both of you guys, because Jess JD is my first LGBTQIA relationship. I had not come out or, ever even mentioned, anything like that. But I did grow up as a PK. My father is an ordained minister, as well as my grandfather is a pastor and has been, I think his official title is bishop now, if I'm not mistaken. It's not
Come on,
minister
Bishop.
anymore. Yeah, I was like, Reverend. He wanted him. He wanted the big ones. He wanted the big names. But moving from my church into my grandfather's church, I didn't have that view of, oh my God, the pastor's judging me kind of situation. Like every time he told a message or something like that, I was like, oh my God, he's talking about me. I didn't care, because when I looked at the pulpit, I saw Pawpaw. I didn't see pastor. I didn't see, this end all be all figure, the pedestal that most people put their pastors and their ministers on, as far as being able to control so much. I didn't have that when I transferred to my grandfather's church. That was my pawpaw, and that was it. And I often brought a lot of my doubts and questions that I had about the Bible to him. And if he knew, he gave me the answer. And if he didn't, he gave me the best answer that he could. And I respected it from there. So I wasn't necessarily afraid to come out to anyone in my home when I was speaking about LGBTQ. I have aunts that have been members since before I was born. I have uncles and my stepbrother. I have so many people who are members of the community that I had no fear. I didn't worry about any of that. I took you to church with no problems. I had no, in my head, I had no...
She just literally walked in the kitchen and just was like, hey, Ma.
Yeah, that was it. I walked into the kitchen
now,
and
Daniel,
told her,
I don't know
what
your experience is like, and maybe we can touch on that later, but mine was very tumultuous. It was very tumultuous.
I didn't have battle.
Because I was raised in the church as well, non-denominational, and then we moved to Baptist later on in life. But it was very tumultuous. It took a long time to get where we are now, and I love the relationship that I have with my folks now. But it was a long time coming, and it took a lot to get here. A lot of tears, a lot of boundaries, all of it to get here. Her process was, she was just like, I'm here, I've arrived,
I'm present,
love me.
I never had to question whether or not the love was going to be there, though. So I can understand how some people are afraid to come out, because you question whether or not they're still going to love you for who you are, especially if you've been performing for a long period of time, and then you actually have to muster that up and tell someone that you care about and that you love and that you hope will accept you, that you're not who they thought you were going to be, or that you're not what they thought you were going to be, right? I didn't have that fear. I knew that even if you were going to be mad at me, what are you going to do? Undaughter me? Like, Mom, I like a girl. That was my mindset.
But
now,
it's
I literally,
because TikTok. Well, first of all, I have to just give a little bit of levity, because baby, when I tell you TikTok had a plan for Joe that Joe didn't even know.
Oh yeah, they ushered you right into
the community.
They said, oh yeah, come on over here.
They said, you're curious.
But
here you are.
Even though you may not have necessarily had the same experiences as Jay or even myself, you absolutely know what it is to walk into a space that you know that you're not welcome in. You are a Black woman, number one, living in America. You are also someone that has been very open about, certain mental health challenges like anxiety and things, and walking into spaces with people that you don't necessarily know. That is a part of what we go through when we look at LGBTQIA plus people walking into a church space, wanting relationship with God, wanting to have a faith-based religion that they can trust and be comfortable in, but having to wonder every second of the day, do you want me here? And these people are supposed to be your representation. So if the people who represent you are looking at me foul, are saying bad things about me, baby, let me tell you about how messed up church folks is. And I'm going to do my best not to cuss, because my mouth is foul.
Well, you can't cuss if you want to.
This is risky radio, so ain't nobody going to mute you.
So I grew up in the church because I had aunts and uncles who were ministers and evangelists, very high named people in the Kojic church specifically. When I was 17, I made my own decision to find a church home that happened to be Baptist. One of the mothers of that church spread a rumor that me and her quote unquote godchild, who was much older than I, married with two kids, were having were having an affair.
Oh,
And he had basically come into my life as a big brother. You know, we were friends at the time. Um, and I was 17. And I'm walking
That's
into a
actually.
church at 17, 18 years old, finding out that this woman who doesn't even know me on a personal level or any other level had spread this rumor and put this rumor into my friend's wife's ear. That was the type of stuff that I was dealing with.
oh, we gotta
Wow.
fight.
Well, yeah,
I'm
like
not
I don't
even a
even.
fighter.
You know,
I'm
then
so
to
speaking of which, I'm so glad that you went through. Not necessarily, I'm glad that you went through the tumultuous relationship that you had with your family, but I am glad that whatever y'all needed to get through, y'all got through before y'all got to me.
Everything happens in time. Everything
Yeah,
happens in time.
because I'm not wrapped for that. I'm not built for those type of things, as we all
It,
know. So
it,
it would have been real interesting to have to battle that.
so
Because even
the issue was just with me. It wasn't the person that I was in a relationship with at the time. It was me. And I was literally told, if you are going to do this, I can't be in your life. I can't be down with you.
yeah.
Now, that is not really how she felt at the time. Coming to find out, it was just the words that came out of her mouth. It was just what came to her head from programming that we've all heard and lived through, right? So, like I said, after having lots and lots of conversations down the road, we are in a great space now. But
I'm
it's
so happy. I'm happy about that for you guys. Cause yeah, I mean for you, cause that wasn't that didn't even cross my mind. My biggest fear when I was coming out was how it was going to affect the relationship with me and my baby sister because she looks up to me, and my mom points out that she looks up to me so often. And with me navigating that and being curious but also a little confused, I didn't want her to be looking at me for answers that I wouldn't have because this was something that I was just walking into. So she was my biggest fear. But whether or not I was going to be loved at the end of it was never something that even crossed my mind. So. And you guys watched me also as I started asking the LGBTQ community how I could be a better ally on TikTok. And that's when I started finding out what was happening to transgender individuals and how it's not getting the mass coverage that it deserves, and how people are coming up missing, being found in some of the most horrific ways of being dismembered, or just all kinds of different things like that. And there aren't enough, I won't say nobody's talking about it, but there's definitely not enough people talking about it. There are not enough conversations going around to protect human beings who are living their lives to their way. That's not a reason for them to go the way, for things to go the way that they are going, which is why another reason why I thought that these type of communications are so important. Circling back, Daniel, what would you say are some of the most common misconceptions that the Christian population has about the LGBTQ community and the
Um,
agenda?
I think the most common is probably that we have one. And as gay and as out there as I am, honey, if there wasn't an agenda, I'd be one of the first people in the community on the list to have it. And I can tell you that that agenda has not arrived in my email. Um, I think another misconception that the Christian population has with LGBTQIA folks is that everything about us is salacious. Everything about us is just, hedonistic, rebellious, rebellion and all of these things. But they also, and when I say they are talking about the Christian community, there's a huge misconception about the very book and verses that they read to use against the LGBTQIA plus community. Number one being that the word homosexuality did not even enter the Christian Bible until 1946.
Thank you. I was gonna hit on it later,
Yeah,
but you
that's
got it.
definitely
You
one of our
got
touch
it.
points. Yes,
So,
yes.
so that's a huge misconception. And of course, we go into language, Hebrew, Greek, and translations of how we got to the word homosexuality in the Bible and all of that. It's all a misinterpretation.
Evangelicals.
It's all a misinterpretation. We're reading a German interpretation of a Greek text of of which is an interpretation of a Hebrew text in languages that we really don't have current day. You know what I'm saying? So
Agreed.
the biggest misconception I know for me personally that the Christian community has with the LGBTQIA plus community is that we are people that need to be fixed in regards to our orientation or our walk of life or our identity. And even if we were, that's not your job, or it shouldn't be your focus.
Agreed. What about you, JD? What would you say are the common misconceptions?
I'm gonna let you hit on the agenda part. I'm gonna let you hit that because there's no gay agenda, guys. Just in case y'all wanted to know.
Exist.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
What I wanted to hit on is I want people to understand that who you're attracted to is not a choice. You can't choose who you're attracted to. It just happens. Did you choose to be attracted to me, or did you see me and say, she a babe? No, I'm just playing.
I get that.
What I want them to understand is when you are forcing your heterosexual norms on us, it puts us in the closet that you all want us to come out of because you want us to conform and be like you. But everyone is different. Everyone is an individual. So when we talk about attraction, right? I can't say, oh, yes, I am attracted to you and I don't see anybody else. No, attraction is a physical thing. It's not something you can control. It just happens. So I think that's probably the most common one, is that Christians say that you can make a choice to be attracted to a man or a woman, the opposite sex. Let's put it like that.
Because you already know I want to get into Donnie McClurkin. Because the way they did, homie, you already know I want to tear into the way the church did Donnie McClurkin, and then he tried to turn around, and I don't even know what message he was trying to send when he tried to. It was very much so giving, I am delivered. That's all I'm saying. It was giving, I don't like boys no more, is what it was giving. The way that he came out and said that he had been struggling with homosexuality, and then immediately turned around and started condemning it as though like he had been possessed by Satan himself. Like, it's wrong. The only people who do it are people who have been touched or assaulted or blah, blah, blah. Like, he completely just came for the throats of homosexual men, women, everybody. Like, it's your fault.
Self-hate.
And I was like, wait, brother, just a couple months ago, you was on this side. Like, you was over here. I don't understand. Like, I don't get how one became the other. But what I would say is one of the biggest misconceptions is the programming. To me, it's all programming. The same way that they are trying to convince everyone that LGBTQ has an agenda against the church is the exact same way that America tried to convince white people that black people had something against them, which is why we didn't need to be free. If we let them free, who's to say they don't try to come back and make us slaves? If we make them free, who's to say they don't try to come back and hurt us because of everything that we've done? If we let them be free, if we let them do what it is that they want to do, who's to say that they don't take everything that we worked this hard to build? And in their minds, they actually did some work, even though their work involved, us doing the work. I feel that it's all programming. It's a fear tactic. It is a tactic to make people feel like their lives are somehow in jeopardy, or their livelihood somehow has to change if they allow us to live the way that we are trying to live. I think that that's the biggest misconception on both parts, on both sides. I think that Christians are using fear and fear-mongering to try and get us to change the way that we're living. And in reality, no one has, there aren't gays with gay agendas. Nobody's trying to turn straight people gay.
Yeah, what they don't understand is we want representation too.
That's
so
it.
If just as much as a lot of y'all say, oh, I just don't want to see it. Y'all be fine. I just don't want to see it. Who says I want to see a man and a woman kissing? And I got to look at that every day. I got to look at y'all holding hands. I'm not offended. What somebody else does should not offend you. And especially the representation in children's cartoons. I get it if you don't want your child to see anything sexual. I understand that. But Kim Possible had a boyfriend. Raven Simone had a boyfriend. Why do I have to watch that? What's the straight agenda?
The point is, it's a form of oppression because LGBTQ does not have the type of representation that we deserve. And as we're trying to not even fight, as we're trying to just get more of it, as we're trying to be our own representation, and we're trying to come out and say, hey, for those of you who are like me, let's do this. The people who are not like me, for some reason, feel that you need to interject. I feel like the Christian community is low-key becoming Karens, and the LGBTQ community, y'all are just walking in, inserting yourself in business that is not yours. We didn't ask you to be here, but you showed up. Like, we didn't ask you to be present here, but you showed up with your opinion and your Bible. I don't understand.
The biggest judgment.
I will say this. I think, and I do workshops and have conversations like this all the time on my platforms. And I've always been fair across the board. Mm-hmm. And I think that one of the issues that happens for both the Christian community and for the LGBTQIA plus community is the inability to allow a person, a human being, to discover who they are and how they want to express that and present that. We talk about, being gay is not a choice. Being straight is not a choice. I stand on the belief that when I am born, I am born. I'm not born straight. I am not born gay. However, for me, for Daniel J, and I'm not speaking for anybody else, it was a decision for me to walk in the authenticity that felt most authentic for me in my life. That is absolutely my choice because that is what my truth is. That is what my authentic person and being is. And I find it very difficult, just like heterosexual folks who are in the church cannot fathom that a quote unquote straight person can discover themselves in homosexuality or queerness. There are queer folks out there who absolutely feel like you can't discover yourself in heterosexuality. And I also feel that that is wrong. There are people who are living a queer life, who are living a gay life, who are living a bi life, and they discover somewhere along their journey, you know what? That's not who I want to be. That's not who I feel I am. I'm actually straight. I want to be straight. And that person will get badgered and dragged, saying that they are being fake and phony. You really gay. You lying to yourself. Who are you on either side of the fence to tell me? What my authentic truth is. And so if people on both sides of the spectrum could understand that your discovery is your business, my business is to discover myself and then respect you in your journey.
Correct.
That's my job.
In what ways do you think that the teachings of Christianity intersect with the experiences of LGBTQIA plus individuals? Daniel?
I think that if you are teaching about Christianity and you are teaching about people who are subjugated, if you are teaching about marginalized people, if you are teaching about socioeconomic marginalized individuals, and you are reading a book that is literally riddled with those intersections, and you then look at the LGBTQ community and cannot find compassion and wisdom in how to love on them and how to bring them in versus push them away, you are the biggest hypocrite walking the face of the planet.
Boom. Hold up. I got something for you.
I said what I said.
And I did.
And I did. What about you, JD? In what ways would you say the teachings intersect with the experiences of us?
So mine is just an extension of what Daniel J said. So Jesus is love, right? Mm-hmm. The Bible is supposed to be a love story about how much Jesus loves us. And what a lot of Christians don't understand is if he was on this earth right now today, he wouldn't be hanging with y'all. He would be hanging with me and you. Mm-hmm. He would be hanging with everybody else. So that's what we need to understand is it's all about love. The first commandment. Right? Mm-hmm. So love thy neighbor. Why are we judging thy neighbor? Love me, and maybe I can see your point of view, but through your hypocrisy and your hate, nothing feels genuine that comes out of your mouth when you tell me that I just want the best for you. it's not rooted in pureness. It's not rooted in genuineness. You just want me to be what you want me to be.
Well, I don't necessarily think that loving someone means that you have to agree with every decision that they
No,
make in their lives. So I can still understand how someone, I'm speaking for me personally, how someone could say that they love me and still not
of course.
agree with some of the decisions that I'm making. But I'm sure you remember the first time I had my first experience where my feelings were hurt by someone that I care about saying something about the LGBTQ community as though I wasn't a part of it. Like just being really dismissive about it and very flippant about their words, and then not realizing, like asking my opinion on it, not realizing that I was in a relationship with a female at the time yet. And it was hurtful, and I didn't know how to respond. And it was like my first real like LGBT like bullet that I had taken, because everyone had been so open. My family was like, okay, cool. Yeah. Facebook, TikTok, everyone that had been following was like, oh my God, we're so, proud that you're bold enough to come out. I hadn't had any of those type of experiences. So when I got that first one, I was like, lip quiver. What, what do you mean? And I felt personally attacked in that moment. But what I would say, as far as the teachings of Christianity and how it intersects with the experiences of LGBTQ individuals, I know that we like to say that church and state is separate, but if we actually step back and we look at it, it's not. Religion still drives a large amount of the mindset and the programming happening in our country. So if most of the people operating in our country are being raised with that belief that homosexuality is negative, it is bad, it is demonic, it is, gross, it is all of these things, then our experience in this country is going to be different than the experiences of those who are operating in that belief, because we're simply still trying to live our lives, whereas they are looking at our lives as part of the problem with the country, right? They're looking at us as we are an issue that needs to be fixed. We are a problem that needs to be fixed. And that's not. So I think that the teaching intersects with our, it intersects with our experience solely by making other people feel entitled to how we live our lives. I think people feel that they're supposed to interject, they're supposed to intervene because I'm Christian and I think what you're doing is wrong. It's my job to tell you that what you're doing is wrong, kind of thing.
Here, and this is something that in regards to what JD said about, our job is to love. And anybody in a relationship is going to understand what I mean when I say love is not enough. Love is a base. It is a foundation. It is how you are to approach the work. But any relationship, whether it be romantic, whether it be platonic, and even if it is spiritual, there is work involved in that relationship, which means my relationship with God is work. Love is not enough, because in the moments where I don't like what you say to me, in the moments where I don't like how you answered my prayers, the question is, do I still love you? Yes. But do I like you right now? No. And that's honest. And what we miss a lot of times is that you cannot not have a relationship with me and try to give me what you think the truth is. You have to love me enough to want a relationship with me and then have a seat in my life to be able to even say anything about my life decisions. Because outside of that, what you do is you put yourself in a judgment seat, which puts you out of order from a Christian base anyway. And then you automatically make anything I do, say, and or am in opposition to that, you make me the villain in the story. And so, yes, love is the basis. But we all have to do the work to understand, what is my relationship with this individual. Just because I'm a Christian and I love you don't mean I have the right to come and talk to you about your life, because I don't know your life yet.
Bingo. Thank you for that.
That's real. That's real. So for you, Daniel, what would you say, how would you suggest LGBTQ individuals within Christian communities navigate the tension between their sexuality and their faith?
I will tell everybody that identifies in any type of queer space, how you identify and how you live your life, who you love and how you love. That is nobody's business, nor is it your responsibility to explain to any human being on the earth. You don't have to reconcile who you are and what you do to anybody in any position. Your job, if you want a faith-based life, if you want a relationship with God, that's what you need to be seeking. Get into your word, get into your prayers, get into your meditation time, and do the work that you would put into any other relationship that you would find on the street. But I tell pastors and preachers and this all the time. I don't have to define and explain to another human being who and what I am. All you need to know is that I know God, I love God, and there are people in my life that hold me accountable to the things that I do and say because they have a seat in my life and a place to do that.
That part.
But I don't have to explain myself to a pastor as to how do I reconcile my faith and my sexuality. This is how I reconcile it. I got a sexuality and I have faith. That's all you need to know.
Amen.
Mic drop.
I don't know where the doggone thing is.
I said what I said.
I was looking for the applause. I don't know how to work these buttons, y'all.
Can you be my representative?
I was just going to
Dana
ask
J?
you, babe, how do you navigate within a Christian community? How do you navigate within a Christian community with your sexuality and your faith?
For like I said earlier, for a long time, it just came out as self hate and being in the closet and hiding who I really was. It was a lot of depressive moments that I couldn't just call my mama and say, "Hey, I met this new girl and she is this and da 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 da." When I had a boyfriend, because look, when I was younger, I was told by people that I was gay before I was gay, before I even knew I was gay.
And now
And
they
do you-
mad because you living in that truth. Like you told me
Thank
what
you.
I was before I discovered it, and then when I
Thank
discovered it
you.
and walked
Now
in,
you
and now
upset.
you mad at me. Child, please.
not,
said I'm
not
walking
my
in my
mama,
truth.
not my mama, but other people in my family. I heard them either talking to somebody else or they would literally just say it to me. And it was the wildest thing. So I grew up trying to prove them wrong. And now, some of my friends might be on here and y'all can comment. I had so many boyfriends just trying to prove them all wrong. And that is not the way to live. And on top of that, I'm a people pleaser. So that just all plays into the programming that we have lived. And it was so exhausting. I think that's why I don't want to do nothing now, because I am so exhausted from all the years of hiding and putting on and being performative. It is, dang, I just came to a realization. That's why it's called laugh
The breakthrough.
therapy.
That's why it's called laugh therapy. Breakthroughs.
Yeah, we just had a
She
breakthrough.
fighting tears, y'all. Come on. Say more things. I was just going to sit here and let her go. Go on ahead.
No, I think I might be done, but
Break every chain.
Come on,
no,
open
but
the floodgates.
you have to learn. Anybody listening that might be fighting with this, you have to learn your life is yours.
The doors of the church are open.
Yes,
I'm
you have to
screaming.
learn your life is yours, and you can't live it for anybody else. And hiding from who you really are, that is a shell of yourself. You are never going to be truly happy that way. So you have to learn, even if everybody says that they're done with you, you are
Find
going
your
to
tribe.
be happy with you on the inside once you really come to the realization that, hey, I might be attracted to women, or vice versa, whoever you might be attracted to, same sex. But it's something you have to start to set boundaries. Being a people pleaser, that was the hardest part for me to learn, is setting boundaries. And I was having a conversation with my sister today, and I told my sister, I said, I set a boundary with Mom, and I made her apologize to me. And my sister almost fell out of her chair. Because look, Mama is the leader, and what she says goes. And I am 37, okay? And she still, she still tries. She still has her imprint on my life. But after setting these boundaries, I'm so much freer.
Jay, I have a rule and a saying that I used to teach my students. And the saying says, I refuse to leave 10% of me outside to make 50% of you feel comfortable in a room
Comfortable.
of
You gonna make me
100% of
stand up
people
and
who
start
don't
stomping.
care about you.
That part. This is the last part. You missed the last
I'm
part
sorry.
of the sentence.
Say
it one
that
more
again.
time,
I'm
Danny.
sorry. The first part hit.
I refuse to leave 10% of me outside to make 50% of you feel comfortable in a room of people who give 100% of no fucks about you.
That part.
You
So
want
important.
me. You want me to be the thing that you want me to be, so that other people look at you different. It has nothing to do with me. And so I'm not willing to leave a portion of me outside for your sake, because you're uncomfortable with half of who you are or all of who you are. Because the same people that you're trying to perform for, they will eat you up like yesterday's lunch.
You better tell somebody.
That part. Now, for me, it was a little bit different as far as how the tensions, because for me, it wasn't a sexuality thing with my faith. Like, I had already been so much of a rebel my entire life that I had no fear of telling my family, that I had something else going on. Like, I knew that their response was just going to be, okay, well, Joe's being Joe. You know, by the time I was about 15, 16, they were like, all right, this girl is going to do what she wants to do. But they didn't realize that I had been performing for so long to where I was fighting within myself. So I started physically fighting other people outside because I had such a fight going on within myself. And I was the oldest. So I'm the firstborn grandbaby. I'm the firstborn to my mom and them. I'm the oldest cousin. I'm all of that. So I was the one that was easy to deal with, which simply meant that what they told me I did for the most part. When I started, I was super excited, super happy about everything, but I did what appeared to be normal, even though I wasn't normal, and I recognized that I wasn't normal. Turns out I was not diagnosed with autism until I was an adult. But turns out that the reason that everything that they said conflicted with me was because I am operating outside of the programming. I'm autistic, so I'm not picking up on the same things that most people are with their everyday interactions from their TV, their radios. I'm listening to it differently. I'm hearing it differently. I don't know what the deal is, but what you heard is not what I heard. And what you saw is not what I saw. So I'm able to have, really, really interesting conversations with people and have such an open mind because I'm hearing what you're telling me so differently. But what I would say is when it came to this, as far as navigating my faith and who I am, I had left the church. I left completely. I went from having choir rehearsal on Monday, church on Sunday, choir rehearsal on Monday, dance practice on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, children's church on Thursdays, going to church way too many times a week than necessary, to not going at all because I realized that I didn't choose my religion. When I realized that I didn't choose it, I was born into a family that decided that they were Christian a long, 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 long time ago, and Christianity had been passed down to us through generations. I realized I didn't get a choice in that. I had never been to a Catholic church. I had never been to a mosque before. I had never been, I had never looked up any other book to know that this was the God that was the God that made me, right? This was the God that I've been talking to. This is the God, like if I would recognize him, even if it's just spiritually, I would recognize this man, woman, being if I passed and I went on, and I realized I would not recognize God if I were to pass and 7 of them appeared before me and was like, which one were you? I don't fucking know. I was like, the one my grandmother prayed to. Any of y'all know Linda? That's how that's how I would be trying to determine whoever it is that I was praying to. And when I realized how ridiculous that sounded after my son passed away, and I was screaming, I was sitting in my car, and I remember it was like 2 a.m, and I was crying and I'm screaming in the car, and I'm asking God to bring me my child back in that moment. And it was in that moment that I realized, who the hell am I yelling at? Who am I talking to? Who is here with me right now? This all-being, all-knowing, all-seeing being just watched them roll my baby into a freaking morgue, right? I'm like, so you're aware of this happening, and I still can't recognize you. Why can't I feel you? My Gagi said I should be able to feel you. My mom said I should be able to feel you. My grandfather said I should be able to feel you. Where the fuck are you, sir? It's kind of where I was in that moment of anger in my car. And I started looking into other religions in that moment. I started looking into Muslim faith and looking into Catholicism and looking into Jewish faith. And I was just like, a lot of people are saying the same thing to different people, okay? All of you seem to have this same belief in this same being. And then you're criticizing other people for their belief in that being that may be the same being as your being. Like I said, if 7 of them showed up right now in front of you, how would you identify the God that you have been praying to, that you have been serving? If they showed up as light, wind, fire, all the elements, I don't know. However it is that you worship, whoever it is that you're praying to, how do you recognize them, right? So I started doing my research, and that's how I ended up in Orishan faith. That's how I ended up in occult. That is how I ended up, not occult, for those of you who are listening, not a cult.
Yeah, please explain it to them. There's going to be a lot of questions.
I am not in a cult. We are not in Scientology or anything over here. Orishan faith is an African religion based in West Nigeria, y'all. This is not, this ain't that. But that is how I ended up recognizing that there were, for me personally, that there are gods for different things. And the reason that some bad things happen is because some of those gods don't get along. Right? And they're having spiritual wars with themselves up there. And because they're having spiritual wars and you're following this one might decide that you got to be a casualty. You might have to this, that, and the other. And this one is protecting you. It's anyway, I got into Orishan faith and started looking into the backstories, and it resonated with me so much more and so much better, and I felt something there. That feeling that my Gagi kept telling me I would have with God, that feeling that my grandfather kept telling me I was supposed to have with God, I didn't have it until I left the faith that I was born into. So I would say for me, navigating it was educating myself. I navigated it through reading, through looking, through speaking to people, and I found what works for me and how I live my life. I am not encouraging people to leave Christianity. I'm simply saying that when you start on a journey to know yourself, you also start that journey, even though you may not know it, you also start unlearning certain things that yourself was taught. You start unlearning habits that your parents have taught you, unlearning habits that your grandparents and the church and things may have taught you. And when you start unlearning those negative habits, you're able to see the world from a completely different point of view. And that's how it unraveled for me. So I'm able to navigate through Christianity and every other religion freely now, because I'm not going into it trying to change your mind, and I'm hoping that you're not coming into this trying to change mine. I navigated through with authenticity, and I'm hoping that the people that I'm speaking to are doing the same.
Period.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. Once I started stepping into who I really was and living in my own skin, then that's when I started my journey of trying to figure out, is Christianity really for me? I started having questions about the Bible. That's how I knew about the 1946 thing you brought up, Daniel J., is because I started doing my own research and trying to figure it out, because I have some questions that I'm still waiting to be answered within Christianity. I'm not expecting you to answer them, but there's
well, let's
there's
be very
things
clear, because I have not made this clear. I do not acknowledge myself as a Christian, because I believe that the Christian faith, again, has become more a business than it has a religion or a faith-based practice. I do, however, acknowledge in my mind the Most High God that I call Yah or Yahweh, Yahusha. A lot of how I practice is definitive to the Hebrew God, but also understanding the spiritual aspects that most, if not all, of today's Christian churches don't teach, which is connected to how our ancestors connected to that God and connected to all that He has created.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's why you, babe, when you met me, you didn't know very much about the crystals and my candles and my oils and all of that was up there, and my what she called a shrine when she first met me, but my spiritual altar.
I had no clue. But I'm in my educating myself phase. I just went through life programmed and not asking questions, just doing what I needed to do, not exploring and figuring things out. Like they said about the NBA, I was just following the script that was written for me. I didn't ask any questions, nothing. I just was like, okay, yep, I got it. Okay, I'm gonna do it. Okay, yeah, that's on the list too. Okay, I'll do that too. I didn't ask any questions, and that's how I just lived a life of a script somebody else wrote for me. I didn't
I'm
live.
definitely starting to feel like this is going to end up being a part 2 because now I want to have this conversation with you, Daniel, but I also want to have it with another minister or pastor.
Yeah, your Aunt Carmen will be perfect
make
for
it kind of
this.
like a panel discussion because I know she's gonna bring some theology and some biblical.
I would
scripture
love
in
to
here.
hear it too. I would love to hear it.
Especially because she's a minister. She's a member of clergy, but she also has a transgender child. And then she's also my godmother. So now she has a lesbian godchild. And being a black woman who is disallowed from being on a pulpit in some Southern churches because she is female. She's going to have, I just know she's going to have some great points for us. But what would you say as, not just as members, but as allies? What is the role of allies in supporting LGBTQ individuals within Christian communities?
I think the number one rule and goal of any allyship is that you are there to make sure that the voices that are not heard in spaces in which those voices are not allowed have space to speak their truth and their experience. So if you are an ally to the LGBTQIA plus community, your job, your number one job is to advocate for those voices and those experiences when those people are not present. But when they are present, make sure that you shut your mouth and give them the floor to speak their experience. That is the number one rule of allyship. I think everything else, people get so caught up in the labels. What do I call you? What are your pronouns? There's so many this. Decency as a human being is
There we
really
go.
a basic.
There we
It's
go.
as basic as you can get. You are a human. You are living. You are breathing. You have a past. You have a promise. You have a destiny. You have talent and skills. I can respect you. I can love you, and I want to have the spirit that wants to understand who you are.
Look at here, you about to have me stomping in the crowd.
still in her
We need to pass
breakthrough.
around a offering plate for you. Goodness. You were hitting it on the head. You have been the perfect guest today. I just want to thank you
Thank you so
much.
much for joining us, Daniel. Again, I have so many different questions that I still want to ask. We haven't even started to get into conversion therapy yet. People who have been extradited from the church or kicked out. Yeah, this is going to be a great subject. So for those of you who this is your first time tuning in, please be sure to tune in with us next Thursday as well. Every Thursday at 4 p.m. If you are a musician, we do have Bangin' or Basura. We have not received enough song submissions yet for us to start it yet because I'd like to have at least 4 songs to where we can start the Bangin' or Basura.
Oh, that's gonna be great,
every
y'all.
week. Yeah, that's gonna be so amazing, and you guys will get to vote on whether or not the song is banging or trash. So, so definitely stay tuned for that. That's gonna be dope. Daniel, I haven't gotten a chance to connect with you on your schedule, but if you are available around this time again next week, we would love to have you on to speak to. I'll also have to reach out to my Aunt Carmen. Worst case scenario, we can push it back another week to fit you guys, but I do think that this is a topic worthy of discussing. I do think that this is a topic that is necessary in order for us to continue to progress, not just as a community, but as a society as a whole, as people. I feel like we are being distracted by things that are so minuscule, by things that don't affect us on a greater scale of things, and the things that do affect us on a larger scale of things, such as gun control and racism. We completely ignore those things to talk about your sexuality, which is really weird to me.
And the loudest screaming politicians be the ones that be down low.
Right.
The loudest screaming ones.
Right. So if we shifted our focus to things that actually mattered to all of us and benefited all of us, we could stop focusing on the minuscule things that don't affect very many of us at all, actually. Who you sleep with does nothing for me.
At all.
Absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
At all.
I feel like, how Southern mothers, Southern grandparents, whatever, whenever you try to drop off the kid after they say no, they say stuff like, oh, I didn't bust that nut. Like, that's your baby. Like, that's how I feel when it comes to sexuality. Like, I'm just like, I didn't bust the nut. What you had going on is your business. I don't want to know. I find it very weird that people feel that they can violate your privacy by asking sexual questions because you're LGBTQ.
Oh, yes, we got to get into that too.
Like, that's
next
weird.
week.
If you're married and you walk in with your husband, like, I don't just walk up and be like, oh, so how he like it, girl? That's weird.
Yes, that's
weird.
It's weird. We might have a segment next week that's called It's Weird.
Yeah, just a list of
Who's
shit
the
of
man?
how y'all are
Nobody.
weird. It is a lesbian relationship. There is no man. That's the point. That's the point.
Yeah.
I'm good for asking a straight person. So when did you decide to be straight?
Yes.
I'm real good for that.
Yeah,
I'm
when
real
did
good for that.
you? What made you choose
Like,
to be
when did you
straight?
start your whole phase? Okay, yes, because you know the streets are talking.
Yeah, let's get weird. Like, if we're gonna do it, let's do it. Again, guys, thank you so much, Daniel, for joining us today.
Absolutely.
Definitely appreciate you. I will text you and see if you are available, when you are available, for us to continue this conversation. I hope that you enjoyed being a guest of Laugh Therapy this week, because we
loved having
definitely
you.
loved having you. And I believe that's all for me. Did you have anything, JD?
No, I hope we get to see you next week, Daniel J.
We'll talk.
And thank you guys.
Anything for y'all, it's a yes. If I'm available, it's a yes.
Thank you guys
We're
for
favorites.
commenting and viewing. We'll see you guys next week.
Absolutely, guys. Much love. Bye-bye.